We're talking about Proto-Bantu subject and topic, and hopefully it overlaps a lot with Fatima's points. But we want to start out with Mason's relevant data that we want to be talking about, which is given you one, reconstructed sort of subject-object reversal, and the text is also a quote. In a verbal clause, the relationship between subject and some nominal part of the predicate object is looser than what one would expect. Possible clauses would be, for example, the following two, the second of which is rather surprising, considering that both had the same translation. So 1A is the subject-verb-object. Gonki knows the cleverness of the trees, probably most of you know from his article. And then 1B is the reversal, where you have a verb agreeing with the object. Similar freedom of expression, interchangeability of subject and object is often attested in sentences suggested by translations like the following. The worms enter the corpse, the blood comes out of the wound. In the same way, one has dual possibilities involving a locative. So this is another set of examples or sentences that he constructed. Elephant died in a river, so 2A is SV locative, 2B is what we call locative inversion, with a verb agreeing with a locative. There may have been a difference in meaning, so it's interesting that he points out sort of in the direction of sort of information structure being involved in these sets of examples. There may have been a difference in meaning such that the translation of the second case would rather be in a river that died an elephant. So these data are going to be relevant. A non-canonical word order is a relevant and crucial empirical domain, I think, in which the nature of subject and topic can be examined, as it places a non-prototypical subject in the pre-verbal position canonically reserved for subject, and in some cases it triggers different agreement patterns. So what we're going to be looking at will be verb subject word order, locative verb subject word order, and object or agent patient reversal or object OVS construction. Not just the word order, but also the patterns of agreement. So aims of this talk is first to present the cross-Bantu variations or synchronic variation in the properties of subject and topic in a very, very small sample of still 24 sample languages through the investigation of the non-canonical word order. And then to try and situate the synchronic variation in subject properties in a diachronic path from topic to subject. Here's the outline of the talk. First, we want to briefly go over earlier attempts at explaining, earlier but kind of most relevant, attempts at explaining the synchrony and diachrony of subject and topic. And then out of sort of 142 morphosyntactic parameters developed by Lutz Martin and his colleagues at SOAS, we want to take 3 morphosyntactic parameters on subject and topicality for this talk, and then come up with another look at the diachroning of subject-topic based on the new data. And then we want to briefly, when we have time, show some additional evidence for the suggested diachronic path from topic to subject. And then we summarize the findings. So in my earlier work, I had even a smaller sample of languages and considered some few inversion constructions, and came up with these 3 different, 3 kind of language grouping, where I said language type 1 belongs to subject-object reversal or agent-patient reversal languages like in Rwanda, which I called salient-based agreement, where subject-object reversal is allowed, and the agreement prefix on the verb, in the middle column, encodes the most topical element in the sentence. And given Nelson's reconstruction, we could call it sort of situated in a diachronic path from subject to topic. And a language like Kinyarwanda would be probably the beginning stage. This is not a claim about where it started, but it looks very close to what's being reconstructed in Proto-Bantu. And then the second language type is kind of the extreme opposite, where you have no reversal languages, no subject-object reversal languages. At the time I was just looking at presence or absence of subject-object reversal and a few locative inversion cases. What I call language type 2, role-based subject marking, where you have the agreement prefix encoding syntactic subject. This is what I call most advanced stage of subject marking, no longer kind of topic or salient-based topic marking, but subject marking, like Jikjeba would be an example. And then there's a third type, basically role-based agreement, so you don't find subject-object reversal, and the verb agrees with a topical subject and not just any topical argument. This can be kind of an intermediate stage, and at the time from my understanding from those days, I thought this might be the majority of Bantu languages. So this is a starting point. My earlier proposal was about salient-based agreement versus role-based agreement in the synchronic grammar and a possible diachronic path from subject to topic agreement. So the topicality is discussed on a single dimension. And then later on, in Nobuko's work, Yoneda 2008 and 10 and 11, she looks at Matengo data and then discusses an additional dimension, namely that we have to talk about salience-based positioning versus role-based positioning of subject. So we came together and we decided to kind of consolidate recent data, new data from other researchers, which enables us to talk about the degree of topicality and how that plays a role in the cross-Bantu variation in subject position and agreement patterns that we observe today. So what we want to model some of the synchronic variation is this, where you have, on the one dimension, you have at the bottom, kind of a morphological coding of topicality via verb agreement. And then on another dimension is the syntactic realization of topicality. It's a sentence initial position, so what can come in a sentence initial position in a given language. And this hopefully gives a kind of a typological space in which to talk about the variation that we see in inversion constructions across some of the Bantu languages. Yes, order. Does the verb show a default locative subject marker, which we call, or it has been called default agreement inversion, or does the verb show agreement with the post-verbal subjects? That would be subject inversion or agreed inversion. In locative VS order, does the verb agree with the pre-verbal locative, which would be locative inversion or either formal or semantic locative inversion, or does the verb agree with the post-verbal subject? The third one is, does the language allow OVS order or agent-patient reversal? If yes, does the verb agree with the pre-verbal object, that would be agent-patient inversion, or the post-verbal subject? This is some results from Martin and van der Waal 2014 on different types of inversion, and so some of the languages are taken from this, and so these would be the answer to the A question that we had, whether the agreement is in our parameters. Right, and out of that, I think we added a few more examples, and these are languages considered in our study, although half the languages have a lot of gaps still, and we need to still fill in, and we can't have, any conclusive remark. Here are some languages. Here we made a table of these. There are preliminary results. So 1A was if we have given the S-word order, if the language, if the verb agrees with the pre-verbal element, or the post-verbal element, that would be 1B. 2 was locative inversion. 2A would be locative inversion where the verb agrees with the pre-verbal locative, and B would be with the post-verbal. And 3 was whether you have agent-patient reversal in the first place, and if yes, all these languages, all 3 languages have yes, what's the agreement pattern? So 3A is the verb agrees with the pre-verbal element, and 3B with the post-verbal element. And these languages, 3 languages, are the type where you have the pre-verbal agreement in all 3 types of inversion or VS constructions. Here's a very heterogeneous group of languages that we still need to fill in some of the gaps and think about. So halfway down, you have languages where the in inversion constructions, the verb agrees both with the pre-verbal element, for example, in locative inversion in 2A, but also with the post-verbal element. And then there are a few languages where you have subject, sort of OVS construction in 3, yes, but then unlike Kinyarwanda and Zamba that we just saw earlier, the verb agrees with the post-verbal element. And then we have another group of languages like Makua, Hehe, and Matengo, which consistently have verb agreement with the post-verbal subject, and not with the pre-verbal topic or locative. Just additional note, it's not on the slides, but Makua, Hehe, and Matengo are not exactly the same. I mean, exactly the same on these questions, but when we look at another question like whether that WH subject occurs in situ, then you get some differences. And then we have Basa and Bun, where you don't have any inversion constructions. And here are a few other languages where there are too many gaps, and we haven't really considered. So what we have is, sort of at the top, first group the languages like Kinyarwanda, where you seem to have what we call salient-based agreement and positioning, in which the verb agrees with the pre-verbal argument regardless of its grammatical role, S or O or agent or patient, and topic seems to control agreement and position. So what's topical comes in a canonical subject pre-verbal position, and that's the element that controls agreement. So this is the famous example of agent-patient inversion. The book read who. The agreement is with the book. And then we have Herero and Soto type, where you seem to have, on the one hand, you seem to have role-based positioning and role-based agreement, where the subject must be placed pre-verbally. Right, so the question is who bought the fruit, and in the answer, A would be bad, where you have fruit in the pre-verbal position. and then the verb agrees with the post-verbal subject, that would be bad. My friend bought fruit, so B would be SVO. That's accepted. Right, my friend bought fruit. C would also be good. Good, oh, right, OSV. So the crucial examples be 2A and B. First, saying that these languages like Herero and Soto might be role-based positioning, have role-based positioning or a role-based agreement. But then you have, right, and right, so you have examples where you tend to think the subject must be pre-verbal in order to control agreement. So you have thou or a person is walking, you get the subject agree, or the verb agrees with the pre-verbal subject. When the subject is no longer a pre-verbal because of because it's not topical, like in B, there walks someone or someone is walking, you don't get the verb agreement. So C would be bad in Herero. But then you have also a case where you tend to think there's salient-based agreement in Herero because you have locative inversion. In the forest sleeping a lion, where you have the pre-verbal locative agreeing with the verb. So the generalization we have so far is that when the topicality, it's kind of, when the topicality of the agent becomes extremely low, then it must give up the pre-verbal position and then it no longer controls agreement. So this is a language where you have to have a topical subject, and that topical or pre-verbal subject is the one that has to control agreement. Then you have Swahili locative inversion, looking at where you can have 5A or 5B, where 5A is you have the locative inversion, but the agreement is with the preverbal locative, and 5B is another locative inversion, not locative inversion, locative verb subject word order, but the verb agrees with the post-verbal subject. So this is kind of the optionality we have. In our terminology, we can call it an optionality of salience-based agreement and positioning. Let me get both. I think that messed up. So here's an example where the subject can be placed post-verbally and controls agreement, which makes us think that maybe we have role-based agreement and salience-based positioning. So when asked about the book, you have the teacher bought the book, you can have the book bought teacher, in which the verb or the post-verbal subject controls agreement in 6A, then the other way around. So when the verb agrees with the pre-verbal topic, it's unhelpful. Then you have a Matengo type, which seems to be clearly salience-based positioning and role-based agreement. Again, in the forest where there are many trees, like locative structure, 7A is where the verb agrees with the preverbal locative and it's an agrammatical, and 7B where the verb agrees with the postverbal logical subject. And that's how, that's the only way we can say Matengo. So synchronically, there is micro variation in terms of how how topicality weighs in determining a licensing of one pre-verbal position and two agreement. And we seem to have, kind of broadly so far, 4 different types. Kinyarwanda type, salient-based agreement and position. We didn't show examples from Basa, but in the table we saw that it's an extreme case where you have role-based agreement, or extreme opposite of Kinyarwanda, where you have role-based agreement and position. And then you have a language like Matengo, role-based agreement and salience-based positioning. And then you have also a language type like Swahili, role-based and salience-based agreement. So what we have is, like, we've filled in a few languages that we've been looking at in this typological space, where you might have Kinyarwanda in terms of, so on the dimension of morphological encoding, the verb encodes what's topic, and then in terms of sentence initial position, whatever is topic comes in the sentence initial position. And then you have a language like Basa, where you don't have any type of inversion, role-based agreement and role-based positioning. And then you have a case like Matengo, where the morphology goes with the subject, but then the position goes with what's topic. Right? And coming back to Proto-Bantu, what's being reconstructed by Nelson seems like here, where you had kind of topic-based or discourse-based morphological realization and syntactic realization, and it kind of developed this way from topic to subject. So a little additional evidence is that goes as the following. A shift from one system to another takes place in a systematic, predictable manner, as we know, along referential hierarchies. And a case in point is split ergativity, where you have a nominal hierarchy. The leftmost is the highest, and then the rightmost is the lowest. And the more left you go, it's more likely to be in A function than O function. So what's higher in the nominal hierarchy is more likely to be overtly marked in the O function. What's lower in the hierarchy is more likely to be overtly marked in, A function. What we have in Bantu is something similar, Bantu, or in age and patient reversal languages is something similar, is that OSV, OVS construction is restricted along the dimension of the animacy hierarchy. So you have the prototypical agent on the higher left end of the hierarchy, and prototypical patient in the lower end. And then what you get is kind of just show everything. The animacy restriction along that hierarchy. So we have not Kinyarwanda, but Kirundi agent patient reversal, where you have inanimate agent and human patient. The needle will pierce the child, and then you reverse it. Of course, it's grammatically correct, but semantically very odd, because you can't hit the reversal reading. So the reversal is blocked when you have agent, which is lower in the animacy hierarchy, and patient in the higher in the animacy hierarchy. And similarly, 9 is where you have agent, animate agent, and then human patient. The cat licked the boy, and then you can't get the reversal like the book, Roy read the book. Yeah. Okay. So the generalization is very straightforward. agent-patient reversal seems to be possible when the agent outranks patient on the animacy hierarchy. And similar animacy restrictions are observed in differential object marking, which is also said to represent a stage in which overt case marking is being lost from the low end of the referential hierarchy. So this is kind of an indication that even in languages like Kinyarwanda, sub-agent-patient reversal is very restricted and possibly kind of being lost over time. Additional observation is that in recent work by and Hoon and other colleagues have looked at Kirundi sentences, almost 1,000 written and 1,000 oral Kirundi sentences, and we see that this is just about frequency, but we see that agent-patient reversal is very low. So presentational, assuming that this is also VS, so kind of inversion constructions are under 5% altogether. So this then what we have is that agent-patient reversal, or inversion constructions probably in general are locative too. You have the marked discourse where you have focal agent and topical patient, which is a very marked discourse, and also marked syntax that patient outranks agent in terms of word order. So such a marked construction type appears infrequently without overt morphology, especially when there is a choice in the language with overt morphology like a passive, and therefore is susceptible to change or loss over time. And this change is crucially concomitant with the change in the properties of agreement morphology and positional fixation of subject. So to sum up, what we have based on still a very small sample is perhaps a potential diachronic path from salient-based syntactic positioning and agreement to role-based syntactic positioning and or agreement. Some languages have retained the salient-based agreement and syntactic positioning like Kinyarwanda, and others have developed role-based positioning like Basa. And still others developed role-based agreement while keeping the salient-based positioning like Matengo. This is how we look at the languages so far, and there seems to be some indications that salient-based argument linking is being replaced by role-based argument linking. Other empirical domains in the contemporary Bantu grammars indicate that topicality still plays a significant role in the core syntax, like passive constructions, class, and other types of word order. And so we believe that looking into the possible diachronic path of the syntax of subject-topic helps us make better sense of the coexistence of the salience-based and role-based system of argument linking. That's it, I think, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was very well within the time. Any questions?
Nobuko answered all the questions.
Maybe you mentioned this, or I don't know if you specifically commented at one of your tables. In your type 3, it looks like all the languages in your sample either choose one or the other. There's not one that does both. Like there's not a yes one. So this is the object separate reversal. Like
how do I this is the only way I can go back.
It's okay, please. Thank you. Do it. Or maybe even seeing that 15. Oh, there it is. I don't use 15.
Okay.
I don't even use it. Is it 15? Oh no. Oh, maybe you're 15. This one. Okay, so you can stop there. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Either of them. So did I see it right? So all of the languages that are of type 3, like allow, I mean, not the no languages because then it's irrelevant, but they only are either A or B. The other types, you have languages with optionality. They can agree in pattern A or B. But in type 3, it seems like they have to choose, right? Is that true for your sample? Meaning there's no language that allows both agreement patterns in the inversion or reversal construction.
A reversal in 3, you mean?
Yeah, in 3.
Right.
So they either go one way or the other, but
Right.
there's no language that does
No, not like in London.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So is that an accurate, I mean, based on your
Yes.
sample, that's an accurate difference?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Just
But
to-
there are maybe languages that
Yeah,
our
no.
sample is very too small.
Yeah, okay. It would be interesting if there's an asymmetry, even statistical,
Right,
at all.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be difficult to really show. So this is where I sometimes get confused when you say OBS construction,
Yeah.
because to me that means that the object is really in a particular sort of sentence internal position with a different kind of function. But you seem to be using it as a whichever way the object or the patient rather gets in a pre-verbal position, whatever syntactic role it fulfills. And that's how you can have the yes or no agreement with a pre-verbal patient or with a post-verbal agent.
Not making it.
So that would be.
Yeah, I guess it could be a language
I
probably like.
bet that all the languages that have this proper subject-object reversal construction, where the initial slot on the verb agrees with the pre-verbal patient.
Yeah,
Yeah, you with me?
yeah.
Also allow a pre-verbal sort of dislocated
Object,
patient.
yeah, patient.
Where the subject
Yeah, you
doesn't
think so.
necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, you might be right, yeah. I just,
And so agreeing with the post-verbal logical subject would be independent of
okay,
that. I would think.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good answer.
Thank you.
Good answer.
Maybe a remark. When I read this literature, and that's a general methodological remark, I'm always confused by the fact that the definition of subject seems to shift on every page. And I think you can avoid this by avoiding using grammatical relations altogether, because obviously in these types of constructions the grammatical relations derive from the constructions and not the other way around. So for instance, on your scheme, I think it was on slide 27, what is very confusing about it, just to be able to follow, yes, is that you put topic and subject as opposing things, whereas this obviously is not what you mean to say. Instead of subject, there should be agent, I guess.
Logical subject, we should.
Well, logical subject doesn't make
not
sense.
the grammatical
It's
subject.
agent.
Agent.
It's
Right,
agent, yes.
Yeah.
Then you see that the subject properties are divided
Right.
among them. It's just
right. I was very sloppy. I mean, I don't believe
no,
that
it's
there's
not
no.
you. It's the entire literature.
No, I don't believe that there's no grammatical relation change in agent patient reversal, and I've given some evidence in my thesis, but yeah, I wasn't focusing on that. So thank you. And also, topic is kind of a very vague term that we just used it that we
Yeah,
forgot
but
to
I think
mention.
that
We
is
just used
fine.
Technique is going.
It's not fine.
And also salience. What is salience? And we kind of
The
avoided
term
it
of inversion is also
Yeah.
confusing there, because what is inverted versus what? I think it would also be better, I think, to avoid that term, but you can't have it all.
Yeah, sounds like we're moving to an existential crisis again.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions? Okay then,
Thank you
let's
very
have a
much.
speaker. And then our next and last speaker of today